They changed our streaming key without telling us. You're online.
Hi everyone, welcome finally to the RetroBlasting Lockdown Livestream number 3, I think, or 4, I can't remember. Time has lost all meaning, and here's Michael, fresh from fighting with YouTube and technology, which is what we're here to talk to you.
No, let me tell you the brilliant YouTube BS that's gone on in the last 15 minutes, okay? First, they change your streaming key without telling you they've changed it. Then, what they also don't tell you is they've completely redesigned the YouTube Studio dashboard and eliminated access to find your streaming key. So then you have to force it to go back into the classic mode to even find it. That's the advice online. You can't use the new version, and we didn't tell you we changed everything. Good luck, mother effer. Like it's horrendous.
I think we should make a new rule here during the lockdown times. Anyway, whenever Michael goes on a rant, you get to take a drink. Maybe even 2.
I'm so frustrated right now.
Well, to combat that, I think that what we can do is we can actually start. I had posted links to sort of remind folks that we're doing this today, and wow, hello. We are going to be doing this every Saturday for the foreseeable future, just during this time, just to kind of, be able to talk to you. You guys can hang out with us. It'll be cool. So, anyway, I found some comments that people had made, and I thought before, since we may not have a lot of comments already in the thread, we could start off by talking about some of these things. So, the one that I saw the most was people wanting us to talk about the movie Wizard with Fred Savage. And I saw some back and forth that may have been on Patreon where people were talking about this being an age determiner. So like when you hear about vintage gaming, if the first thing you think of is the Wizard or Wizard, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the Wizard, right?
I don't remember. It says Wizard in the title. It's one word, Wizard.
So it's super Wizard. But so it's either from that generation or you think of The Last Starfighter. And I think that's kind of an interesting idea because to me, I would think of, I don't even know. I think of a Seinfeld episode, so I don't know what that means. But
you're talking about the Frogger episode. I saw the Wizard as a kid in the 80s. It's where are we on? Where's our chat?
Our chat is over here.
Okay, so we don't need to be missing stuff.
We're not gonna miss stuff. So thank you, Jody, for the super chat. He just says it's for your struggles with YouTube.
Thank you. No, I saw The Last Starfighter. I saw The Wizard. I saw the Seinfeld episode. The only thing they all have in common is that there are video games in them. Otherwise, they're not the same. The Wizard is a literal 2-hour advertisement for Super Mario Bros. 3 and Nintendo. That is what it is. It was pretty shameless in that respect. It even had arcade games that were the Nintendo versions of those games, which was really irritating because Ninja Gaiden would be the Temco version and or Tecmo. I can't remember which company at this point. I'm a little frazzled. But in the movie, he's playing Ninja Gaiden in the arcade, and it's conveniently the Nintendo version. Even as a child, I was like, what? My favorite arcade game integration into a piece of entertainment is always going to be The Last Starfighter, because they even went so far as to create a completely unique arcade game for the movie. It wasn't like he got the high score on Pac-Man and suddenly became a space starfighter expert. So they wrote their own game just for the film, and I find that to be far more interesting. I didn't hate The Wizard as a kid, but I saw it once in the theater and then never felt the need to rent it.
What year did that come out?
Like it was either like 89 or 90, something like that.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too. So.
It was at the height of Fred Savage's powers, and it was a fine movie. They tried to have a story and everything like that. It wasn't. I know a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for the Wizard, and I don't. Like I said, I don't hate the movie at all. I just feel like the movie's very overtly a Nintendo ad.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen it one time, so I don't really remember it, but I do know that it probably does feel that way. The movie that I remember when I think about video games, it's not even a video game movie, but it's a game movie, is War Games. And that's the movie that
Yeah.
I would just like watch over and over again, even though it's more of like it's almost like a chess simulator game
Well,
that
but
goes awry, right?
War
Like,
Games goes all the way back to the Atari era
which
of.
is exactly why I think I like.
Well, it like Last Starfighter straddles that line. Like Last Starfighter is after the video game crash, the home video game crash, but it's before Nintendo's ascendance, and so it's where arcades were very dominant.
Yeah.
And so that makes the most sense. The Wizard falls in the late 80s when video game consoles in the home had really bounced back and were more massive than ever.
Charles, thank you for the super chat. He says, I just wanted to thank you guys for doing these live streams. It's making my days at work brighter. Even when I can't watch live, I watch the replays on my lunch breaks.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, so we thought that we would talk about these vintage video game consoles and experiences. I know that we kind of touched on the arcade experience on the live stream right after I did the Star Wars Follies about the Star Wars arcade games. But the home console thing, if you've watched any AVGN or Gaming Historian, you'll know that started with the Pong consoles, which were trying to bring Pong, the first arcade game, into the home. Very simple. I never had an Atari 2600 growing up. I guess you did?
I did.
Okay.
Real quick, I want to say thank you to PNR Comp Guy for the super chat. He says, "Happy Easter to my favorite couple. Been watching RetroBlasting classics while in quarantine. Love the info and love the interaction. Keep the faith." So, thanks. We appreciate that. Glad that we've got that extensive
Yeah.
catalog and rewatch. Yeah, I did have an Atari 2600 kid. It's the only video game console that I ever owned until very recently. I had a good number of games. Definitely had Frogger, Donkey Kong. I don't know what came with the console. It seems like something came with it. I had a ton of those games with like 4 or 5 dumb games like on the cartridge, so you know that they were trash because those cartridges can't hold a whole lot. I wasn't any kind of genius. My favorite game on Atari was Qbert. I still really enjoy playing it with the joystick and everything. But yeah, I was never very good at video games, and like I was younger, a lot of the teenager guys were the ones at the like roller rink or whatever who would play the stand-up arcade games, and it was very very intimidating for a girl, at least for me, to go up and try to play knowing that initially I was going to suck. So you have to go through that period of time where you suck, and all the older kids who wanted to play were standing behind you going, "Come on, little kid, you suck, da da da." So I just never wanted to deal with that, so I never really learned how to play them. And then when NES came out, that was when I was in Alaska, and I just remember that being like all of a sudden, all of the boys were gone. Like there were no more boys outside playing, and it was just all of us girls going like, "Where did they all go?" And
Right.
so anyway, that was my experience. I've always been kind of intimidated. I remember we can at some point tell the story of you trying to teach me how to play Super Mario Brothers on the NES.
Yeah, I mean, Super Mario Brothers 1, that was the thing about, Nintendo coming out, is its original spate of games were one-to-one ports from their arcade games. And so Mario Brothers or Super Mario Brothers looked exactly and played exactly on the Nintendo like it did in the arcade. And it was a really, really hard game. I mean, it wasn't a game for inexperienced arcade game players. Like, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
in that game, and you had to be on your toes, and even
But
then,
you, as a kid, if you owned it, I guess you would. Everyone starts sucking, right? And then you get better. And with the NES, that had to be kind of a new experience because that controller layout was new,
right,
right?
yeah,
And so you guys, when you, as being kids, when that happened, you had lots of spare time because it was still the '80s,
right,
and you had the determination, like maybe your parents bought you the game, and so you just spent all of your time learning it. And when you're still young like that, you can really learn
yeah,
a huge
exactly,
amount. So now that probably feels, it seems like when I play video games with you, it feels very secondhand, like, or what's the word I'm looking for, like it's intuitive to you, like
right,
how to do certain things, whether it's what buttons to press, how to figure out what you're supposed to do in a game. Whereas for me, I literally have no idea. So even the first time we played Lego,
mm-hmm.
I couldn't get the hang of the like motion controls. It was very difficult for me. And also like I go, how am I supposed to know what to do? And you're like, well, you just know. And I'm like, I don't just know. So that instinct, I have none of that.
Right,
So it's hard to get back in. I've slowly gotten into the Switch though. So
yeah.
that's been kind of cool.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Luke, for the super chat. He says, thanks for always giving me a smile. You are very welcome.
People are talking about the stuff in England. Yeah, the Amiga. I saw somebody earlier ask about the Amiga. The Amiga was probably bigger in England than it was in the United States for casual gamers. The United States, it was more for like people who really, really loved computers and gaming, but it did exist here. Now, I was very familiar with the Amiga, having moved over to the UK. A lot of my friends had Amigas, and they had the Spectrum ZX cassette game systems, which I saw sold prolifically in toy stores and electronic stores in the early 90s. I even attempted at one point to try and get the 3 Star Wars games on the cassette format just to own them, just to have that format of the Star Wars games. But I myself never had either system. So my very first system was the Vectrex, which is to Melinda's left on the screen. Now, we bought that right before the video game crash, and I guess my dad's logic behind it was it had its own screen, so it wouldn't have to attach to the TV. So if I was playing it, I wouldn't be taking up the television. Little
Typical dad mentality.
yeah, right. Like little did I know at the time though just what a boon that would be, because the Vectrex was this super advanced system that didn't last very long, and now it's this arcade gamers or video gamers legend system. It's one of the more revered obscure systems out there, and I've been familiar with it my whole life.
It's so weird when something like
Yeah.
that happens, when you have something that like to you seems very, very normal, but it was rare, and you don't
Right.
find that out until like you're our age,
Yeah.
and you're like, what, you've never heard of that? And
Right.
I remember like with my dad, speaking of dads, he would occasionally, it's one of the few times when I had the Atari that he would actually come in and play like Frogger. He would play with me, and he loved computer stuff anyway. So he had an Apple, I can't remember if it was a 2C or a 2E, but it was the home computer Apple. He had a lot of early stuff. He knew how to write code and DOS and all of that stuff. So for someone from his generation, that was like kind of rare and kind of a big deal, and he loved technology. So I think he just loved the novel idea of just having one of these in the house, because I was too young to have had the Pong system. So whatever, I can't remember what that was called, but just this was kind of cool to him, I think. So who knows? Maybe if I had had an NES, he would be a gamer dad now, like a gamer, a boomer gamer, if that's a
Maybe.
thing.
Yeah. At the time that I had the Vectrex, which was 83, we got it in 83. Or no, 82. And then in 83.
I think I got mine in 82.
Yeah, it was 82, and then there was the crash in 83. And I was able to get a few games on deep discount right at the end. I got Armor Attack and Cosmic Chasm were the last 2 games I got for it. But once Nintendo came out and Ataris were still in the home, when I had friends over, Vectrex was still this unknown thing. It was like, what's that weird, geeky, oddball system? It wasn't until, I'd say, the late 90s, early aughts that that system became collectible and people really wanted one. And we had given my system to my grandparents for the cousins to play when they would come over to their house when we moved to England.
Do you think they ever did?
Oh yeah, they broke the controller. So I had to find a brand new controller. I found a brand new old stock, never used controller for it. Paid through the nose on eBay, had the box and everything, and got it. The system itself was still working, but the controller was dead. And I saved it from their house when we moved them out years ago, and brought it back with me, and it was still working, and it was all good. So.
Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. Jonathan says, same here. We had an Atari 2600 we got from a yard sale in the 80s. Was the only system I had until I bought my own N64 in college, all because of Mario 64, which blew my mind.
Oh, right. The 3D Mario game. Yeah. I have owned in the past. We have a Super Nintendo, but I know where it is, but I couldn't get to it in time for this setup. It's not my original childhood Super Nintendo. Someone asked if this was your original childhood Atari. It is not.
No, I don't know what happened to my Atari. I think it got sold in a yard sale, or it got left behind when we moved to Alaska. So.
But this is my original childhood Nintendo. I still have the box and the zapper and all that stuff for it. The original control set box. It's upstairs, and it was too big to bring down. It would just be like a lift up. Probably the lights would be glaring on it. But this is my original working childhood Nintendo. Now, some of you might have noticed that the casing has yellowed, and that is a common problem with Nintendos and Super Nintendos. Thing about it is, this Nintendo is still working near perfectly. So I just don't want to start popping cases off just to turn them gray again. So I'm leaving this Nintendo alone until I have a need or a reason to disassemble it. Because right now it's still working like a champ.
Jason Anderson says, when it comes to the 2600, did you have one with wood grain? Yes, I did.
Yeah, because there's another version that's just black plastic.
Yeah, no, mine definitely had the wood grain. It looked pretty much exactly like that. Tim Hayes says, Michael, did you ever get any plug-and-play systems?
I don't recall having any plug-and-play systems, not to my knowledge. I'm not sure what the whole opinion does not override facts thing means. I'm going to ride right past that.
So, did anyone ever play Taz on the Atari? I don't.
I did. I've never played Taz. No.
So, sorry. I'm trying to use this other thing on my phone to sort of not lose track of super chats. What's the greatest franchise not to get a video? I assume you mean a video game.
Say that again.
What's the greatest franchise not to get a video game?
The greatest franchise not to get a video game? Well, there's a difference between franchise and intellectual property. If it was an IP, then I would say it would have been cool to have like a Thundar arcade game or a video game, because you have 3 characters that you could have done like a cool beat 'em up with in the arcade. But that didn't have any spin-offs, so would I call it a franchise? Back in the 80s, I would have liked some sort of dedicated Knight Rider game with, driving the car, driving Kit. I think that would have been cool. Or an Airwolf game, because you could have flown the helicopter and...
Maybe it would have made that property interesting.
All right. But someone asked, yes, I did own an N64 at one point. Sold it. I did own a Xbox, an original Xbox. Sold it. Held on. We got rid of my Super Nintendo because it broke. Held on to some of the games. Eventually, we got another Super Nintendo console, but unfortunately, I'd sold all the peripherals. So,
thank you, JD, for the super chat. He says, my first computer was a Tandy 1000, and my first console was an NES. I still have fond memories of playing both as a kid.
Yeah, we had a PC growing up. My dad had it for business, quote unquote, but they had a few games on it, and then I bought the Dragonlance game. It wasn't called Dragons of Autumn Twilight, but it was based on that book. It was an EGA, adventure RPG type game. It was really hard to control with a keyboard, and it came on big 5 1/4 floppy disks.
Yeah.
And I had that, and then we had some built-in games. We had a game called not Dig Dug. It was called Dig and it was, you were, instead of a dude with a pump, you were like this little rover that would drive around and collect emeralds and whatnot. And then we had the chess game that was identical to the chess game Kurt Russell plays in The Thing, but it was in the PC. It wasn't its own dedicated console.
Plastic Galaxy, thank you guys very much for that super chat.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's a sticker of a giant green eggplant flying with a cape. I like that. Yeah, I actually remember playing computer games more than the Atari, actually. And I had Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, the very first one. I didn't follow it later. I know there was a show in the 90s. I never watched that. So I know it's there, but before you even asked me, I don't know anything about it. What I do know is that there are simulators online where you can play it, and the one I had came with the Atlas, so you could sort of look up all the stuff, and it was kind of like a learning game. There were a lot of those that people played back then, and but I loved it. My friend Olivia used to come over, and she and I would play it together. And we used to call it "Where in the Hell is Carmen Sandiego?" because it was scandalous to say it. And,
Hold on a second, Luke. Cool your jets, okay? I'll get to your Donkey Kong Country question. You don't have to blow up the chat with it. All right, just cool down. Keep talking.
So anyway, Wheel of Fortune was the other one that I had, and it looked just like the TV show, but I just enjoy word games like that. I know that's really lame or whatever. I never played Oregon Trail. I know a lot of people had that in school or whatever, like if you took typing or computer science or whatever, but we just didn't have that in Alaska as a course. We had a very, very small school. It was it was one step away from being a one-room schoolhouse, and so we just didn't have computer science lab. So I guess that's why we didn't have Oregon Trail, to my knowledge anyway. I certainly never played. Did you ever play that
I played
game?
Oregon Trail in elementary school. Yeah, I played it alongside some computers that had Karateka, and
I think I've seen that on, is it AVGN? Talked about it, or Gaming
Historian. And
okay.
Yeah. Okay, Donkey Kong Country. So let me answer your question. Did play it on the N64. We owned it. Revolutionary graphics for that game. Great gameplay. It was a solid platformer. I have nothing but good memories of the game. It was back when I was in college when that game came out. It was right at the end of high school and right into college. So I don't have nostalgia for that game, but I do respect what it achieved. So I hope that's a good answer.
I thought it was great. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've heard of it, but again, everything after Atari and before the Switch is like a black hole to me. So I'm gonna be the Aaron in this situation.
So you literally leapfrog from the Atari 2600 to the Switch?
Uh-huh.
So
I'm amazing.
So you've skipped, you're just leaping over 40 years of video gaming.
Yeah, I have watched a ton of YouTube videos about people, and I've watched people beat games really fast. I find it fascinating to watch people play these old games. I love AVGN. I love Video Game Historian. I love watching some of those guys who will show you all the weird cheats where, is it Super Mario Brothers or whatever Mario Brothers, is there a Mario and then a Super Mario? Or is it just always Super? Is he always Super?
He was Super once they started Super Mario Brothers. He was Mario Brothers before. Clarification, yeah, I'm talking about Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. I get Super Nintendo and N64 games that are in Nintendo specific confused sometimes because I played a lot of franchise games instead, like Super Star Wars, and I was into PC gaming at that point, like X-Wing and stuff. So yeah, I'm talking about SNES, Donkey Kong Country, and whatever the N64 one was, I guess I never played. Please continue.
What was I saying?
You were talking about, what were you talking about? You were
I don't
talking
know.
about,
It was awesome, I'm sure. Whatever it was.
you didn't hold on to your thought?
Oh, I'm really bad at that. You guys can yell out what I was talking about if you remember. In the meantime, I'll say thank you, Wildstar Studio, for the super chat. He says, did you ever have the opportunity to play the last Starfighter arcade game that was made a few years ago? I got to play it at the Alamo Draft House when they were promoting Ready Player One.
I never have gotten to play that game. I've heard about it, but alas, I've never played it. I would be curious to know if the controls are the same, where you have like the throttle stick and the joystick. That would be interesting to know.
Hey, we're listening here. Thanks for the super chat. He says, Animal Crossing on the Switch is keeping me going through this lockdown. Aaron would agree with you. Aaron has been sending me like all of these screenshots of like him and his kids playing the what's it called? Animal Crossing thing. And he keeps trying to explain to me like what the point of it is. Isn't it kind of like that other Lego game? I call it a Lego game. I know it's not a Lego game, but you're basically taking square looking things and building cities. And that's, I mean, I don't get it, but I am not going to criticize anybody else for enjoying it because I like what is probably considered really boring stuff.
You were asking about Super Mario Brothers and were they always super? And then I said Mario Brothers was the first game after Donkey Kong. I believe that was Mario's second appearance or first appearance.
Right. I think my point, though, was I've seen video game people on YouTube do a thing where Mario's running along and then he can jump up and run over the top of the screen and just bypass all of the bad guys to break through and get to the next level or to win the game.
That's Super Mario Brothers 1.
Okay, whatever it is. And so to me, those things are really interesting because that's actually what I did with video games on a meta level. I just like jumped up, went over all of that crap and landed at the Switch, which is just kind of cool.
We have some super chats.
Yes, they all just popped up, and I didn't miss any.
No, I know that.
So, Alexander Nielsen, thank you. He says, hi, did either of you play Battle Chess, where the animated pieces kill one another? Played it originally on a 386.
Yeah, I watched the Battle Chess demo in Electronics Boutique in the 80s constantly on a demo PC. I loved watching that game. I've never gotten to actually play it, but as a kid, I was fascinated by it.
And then Thunder Robots, thanks a lot, says Game Genie was the best accessory when it worked, and there is a Knight Rider NES game, and apparently European exclusives PS2 games exist as well.
Wow, I didn't know that. I would assume that much like Die Hard and Dirty Harry and some others, Knight Rider, the NES game, came out like toward the end of the NES's life cycle. It seemed like that happened. Like Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back also came out right at the end, but they were 10-year-old movies at that point.
Ian Mitchell says, what did you think was the worst arcade transfer to a home version? Mine was Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, as none of the home versions were anything like the arcade.
Well, to me, a lot of them were really disappointing. I have an appreciation now for the Nintendo Ninja Gaiden, but the arcade version was so much cooler to me that I've had little interest in the Nintendo version to this day. Some other arcade ports that really disappointed me were things like the Ninja Turtles game, the arcade beat 'em up, trying to become the second Ninja Turtles game on NES. I thought that was really weak. So yeah, there were a number. The arcade for me was always where it was at for a very long time.
Curtis Husted and Broad Nation. Yes, I mean Minecraft when I'm talking about that Lego game. It's basically, you guys can jump in and correct me because as I said, I don't play a lot of video games, but my understanding is you basically go in there and almost like SimCity, you just sort of build a house or a fort or whatever it is you want to do, and then it's almost like, what is that, Farm Crossing or whatever it is that was the South Park episode where like you basically have a farm and you plant stuff and you just like have a virtual
Farmville
life. I don't know. It just sort of seems like work to me. instead of, and like, to me, if I play a video game, I want to level up constantly and get more and more powerful and fight people and kill them and take their stuff. That's what I
Fair
want
enough.
out of a video game. Preferably, I want my character to be some really cute little animal, but I also don't want to have to do all of the crap that comes with things like whatever those like D&D style where you have like a whole crew of people and you're constantly pressing 400 different combo patterns to try to do moves.
So you don't want turn-based
I don't want a turn-based
party
game.
RPG.
Nope. I don't like that. I want to be just me. That's why I like The Legend of Zelda. I honestly just like Zelda on Switch because I will just run around and like sneak up on parties of, I'm going to call them orcs. I know they're not called that, but they're basically orcs. And you just like murder them all wholesale from a distance. And then I come in and take all their stuff and loot everything. And then I'm like really rich. And then I go in and I buy a cool sword with it or a cool armor. I just like that. So that's just me. Like, I've tried a lot of different games. So another super chat, Kal-El says, Michael, did you ever have a subscription to Nintendo Power?
Yeah, we had this subscription that they sent out the first time that started with issue 1. I guess we got it for, actually that might have not have been a subscription. That might have been a courtesy issue. I ended up with an issue here and there as needed. I would pick them up at like Electronics Boutique or Babbage's or a place like that that had, video game magazines for sale. I don't think I ever held a subscription, though, oddly enough.
I've seen lots of issues of it laying around throughout my life, but I don't know that I've ever known anyone who had a subscription, but
Right.
Apparently they did. Lots of people are suggesting Dark Souls. I don't know. I don't know how difficult it is either, because I get intimidated. I don't know if I'm a lot better at games now, though. You've seen me. I basically beat Legend of Zelda. Although I will tell you that it was so stressful at the end that I made Michael beat the last boss, and then I was really disappointed that I didn't have like open world post killing the big boss. Like I wanted to be able to go through the land and like clean everything up.
Right.
So Okami was a game that I really loved the first time I played it, but I hate puzzles. So if there's a game that's got like a ton of puzzles in it, I know we're talking about modern gaming now, but that's one of the things I do like about older games is that there don't seem to be as many dumb puzzles that are just annoying. So Vinkman, thank you for the super chat. He says, Michael, how many Star Wars video games have you bought and played over the years?
Vinkman, first I want to tell you that for some reason I did glitch out on the last live stream and I meant to say 4th Doctor costume and I said 10th Doctor costume like 3 times talking about my outfit. Don't know why I did that. You caught it. You're correct. And I don't know why I had that brain glitch. So yeah, it's my 4th Doctor costume. Answer your question. So I've played, bought, and owned the original 3 Star Wars arcade games in the new cabinet. You can beat them in a sense, but as far as high scoring, that's a different thing. Then I beat Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back on Nintendo. I've played Empire and Jedi Arena on Atari 2600. I own both of those. Then I beat Super Star Wars, Super Empire, and Super Return of the Jedi as a teenager on the Super Nintendo. Then I played and beat X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Rebel Assault 1 and 2, Dark Forces 2, then Jedi Academy 2, which is Dark Forces 3, Rogue Squadron, the original, Episode 1 Racer. I feel like I'm leaving some out. I think that's where I kind of tapered off. I feel like I'm missing... Oh, I beat the Sega Star Wars Arcade Sit-Down Simulator years ago, and I beat Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. I feel like I'm leaving some out.
Well, I don't know why you're asking me,
for the life of me
because
remember what they are. That seems...
My brain shut off after you said the first one.
Great.
But they all know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They're super excited about it.
I've beaten a lot of them, but I played Knights of the Old Republic, but I was in college then or grad school, so I did not have the time to devote to it, and I didn't own it. But yeah, I've tackled a lot of them. Oh, I beat the Phantom Menace PC game that came out, the Actioner that came out originally. Um,
I have a question.
yeah.
So you said the Vectrex was your first gaming system, but was it the first video game you ever played, or do you remember the first video game you ever played of any kind? PC or arcade or anything?
I was playing stuff at Showbiz.
Okay.
So I was playing like I said in my Star Wars Follies, I don't know if Star Wars Arcade was the first arcade game I actually ever played. It was probably Frogger or Pac-Man or something. But Star Wars Arcade was definitely the one that captured my interest in video games. So, and then I got the Vectrex. So,
I think the first video game I ever played was Galaga in the arcade, you know.
right. My dad liked that one.
And I really like that model. So Qbert and there's several different ones on Atari that are like the little ship that's on either the bottom or it's flying through the air and spins around. And there are all the things coming down and you have to shoot them all. So I really was pretty good at that. So anyway, just interested in...
Yeah. Oh, I beat the Lego Star Wars games, obviously.
I played like one part of that new Star Wars game that I got you.
Oh,
where he was like, me and Aaron were sitting in there playing it. And
I beat Jedi Fallen Order. Yeah. I beat Fallen Order. So
I didn't beat it, but I did play it on the.
Yeah, I knew there was one. I knew there was one I was leaving out. I bought that one and beat that.
Yeah, I've played a few things on PS4, so it's not. I didn't skip the Switch completely. I kind of went in through PS4 into Switch.
Right. Do you remember Galaxian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like all of those kinds of games a lot. For older style games, like per console, like for the Vectrex, what was your favorite game on?
My favorite game on the Vectrex was Star Trek: The Motion Picture because it was a simulator. It was a battle simulator. But my second favorite was called Armor Attack, and that was because you were an army jeep with a missile launcher on the back, and you had to destroy tanks and helicopters in this little burned out town. Even though all of the stuff in Vectrex was, just an overlay. It was a cool gaming experience.
What about like these games that you've got here? Like, was there any choice given into like what you put up here in terms of your favorites, or?
Yeah, we've talked. I tried to put quintessential stuff up here that I played a lot. Like I put Secret of Mana up there from Super Nintendo because it's one of the few Super Nintendo games that I consciously said, even though my Super NES is broken, I will not sell this game. It was that good. But yeah, I just tried to pick a selection of essential games for the table.
Tim pointed out to me that I don't know if I missed a super chat, but just in case, it says I sent a $2 super chat asking if you played Star Wars Battle Pod, and that was from PMJSP.
Oh,
thank you for the super chat.
If you're referring to the arcade game where you fly the pod racer, yes, I have played that. I haven't beaten it. If you're referring to another game, then I'm not aware of what that game is. But yeah, if it's the arcade game where you're flying Anakin's pod racer, yeah, I've played that.
Jairus, thank you for the super chat. He says, ever pretend a game that's not Star Wars was Star Wars?
Oh, yeah, I did that all the time. I did that with Zelda Link to the Past because his sword kept changing color as you progressed. I did that with... What were some of the other games I did that with? Oftentimes, oddly enough, I did that with Zelda, but I feel like there were some sci-fi games I did that with, but I can't remember offhand what those were.
Let's see. I've got lots of things on here that I can read. Did you ever play Myst, as in MYST?
Yeah,
I did, believe it or not.
I played Myst for like 5 minutes.
Me too.
I couldn't stand it.
Maybe 10. It felt like 4 hours.
Yeah, I couldn't get into Myst. I just couldn't get into it. And I know that some people really, really love it, and that's great. But it was like Myst to me is very 90s PC gaming. Like it's.
Well, so I had it on Don't yell at me. I don't know. Was it the original PlayStation in the 90s, like mid 90s?
Yeah.
Say 90s. Okay. So at the time I bought my boyfriend at the like in college a PlayStation because I'm awesome, and he had gotten Myst thinking that I might like it, and he also played Resident Evil 2, which I watched him play over and over and over to the point
Right.
where even when I watch people on YouTube play it now, I'm like, oh my God, I remember that part and the music and all that stuff. So that was the first game like that I had ever seen. And I was too scared to, to play it. But Myst was just like, it was beautiful. But I was like, again, because I don't have those instincts, I'm like, I literally have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I would just
Right.
walk around for hours. It makes me feel good to know that even seasoned gamers had the same experience. So I literally don't have any idea what I was supposed to do in that game. So
Someone's asking, Simon, yeah, I played through most of the Monkey Island games. I don't think I played the latest one, but I've played all the ones from the original up through like the first 3 or 4. I played a lot of those point and click adventures back then, like Full Throttle and Day of the Tentacle, and it's called Maniac Mansion. Day of the Tentacle. It's a LucasArts game. It's a comedy.
it doesn't mean that's not funny.
The game's a comedy, so
Well,
you're
good.
supposed to laugh.
Thank
I
you.
played Discworld. I feel like I'm leaving out some. Like, I played a lot of point and click adventures. I was really sorry to see that format go. I played Sanitarium, and
I listened to Sanitarium by Metallica a lot. Steve Johnson says, what 80s cartoon had the best video game? That brings up something that I've always wondered about, which is why more cartoons weren't made into, like, just like with toys and cartoons, sometimes you have toys that lead to cartoons, and sometimes you have cartoons that lead to toys, but that didn't seem to be a give and take between video games and
right.
and like
Yeah, well-
any of that. So why do you think that is? Like, because you have a few cartoons that were based on video games, but they were always heavily changed, like Pole Position, and there was another one that just went out of my head, like almost like racing type games that were like, why would you pick that?
Right.
But then some things that seem like they would work out really well, like a fighting, like Karate Kid, you could have made almost like a Karate Kid style beat 'em up that wasn't as hardcore as
They
Mortal
made
Kombat.
Karate Kid for the NES, and it's one of the worst games ever made. And AVGN talks about it.
Well, but the difference is Karate Kid is a movie. So, like, just something that was only a cartoon, like, say, Thundar or He-Man or something like that.
He-Man got a game for the Commodore 64, but it was very primitive. You got to remember that a lot of those cartoons that notoriously didn't get games, they didn't get them because they were cartoons that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. And there wasn't that corporate synergy between
Right.
like making a video game adaptation wasn't in the standard playbook then. It wasn't. So
Right.
yeah, like you would have something like Thundercats or Silverhawks that could have made for a fairly decent video game back then, and it just never happened because
I guess I'm thinking more later, like, especially now that we have, like, hella nostalgia all over the place. Like, why haven't... I assume it's a licensing thing, but, like, something like a... Maybe not Silverhawks, but Thundercats, certainly. It seems like they could make a better version of a game like that now and cash in a little bit on the nostalgia. I don't know, maybe it would suck, but I mean, certainly the animation has come a long way. Are there examples of people doing that? Maybe I'm just unaware.
I mean, if you're talking about games that have really, really great animated graphics, they were doing that back with Dragon's Lair back in the day in the arcade with the Laserdisc thing where Don Bluth animated Dirk the Daring, full animation, but it was more like you were just selecting what chapter on the Laserdisc would come next so that you wouldn't get the chapter where you die. It was
I'm talking about modern, like taking a property from the late 70s or early 80s that was a cartoon or whatever, like Thundar. We've talked about that several times. It never got a cartoon, but you could make a really cool barbarian style
You mean
video
it never got
game.
a game?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, it never got like an official toy line either. I was looking at the toys.
Right.
But
Yeah. Well, that now boils down to brand recognition. Like a corporate group is going to sit back and go, nobody knows what Thundar is, and it's like, well, nobody knew what Star Wars was in '77 either. That's
yeah,
been
you
the
could
real
make
problem.
a really great game and it doesn't matter. But I'm just
You could make a really great game, but I'm saying the roadblock you have is this very backwards logic of
sure.
people don't know what it is, and it's like, well, if people get to play a great game, they won't care what it is. They will suddenly love what it is because the game was great. Nobody knew what Red Dead Redemption was when the first game came out. It's
Is
weird.
that the one with the horse?
It's a Western game. It's
Yeah, the one where you were like riding around and you were mad and yelling about the horse.
Yes. Yes.
That's my only knowledge of that game is you coming upstairs, and he would come upstairs mad and he would just be like, let me tell you. And for like 45 minutes, I would hear this amazing description. It was way better I feel like it was way better for me than it was for him. Like just hearing about it secondhand, it felt like he'd actually been through it. It was great. I'm complimenting you.
I appreciate that. The Red Dead Redemption 2 was a disappointment.
Let's see. Corporate won't make games from the past as new generations don't know, and corporate kills any attempts from fans if they try to make. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just surprised in our reboot, recycle culture that we live in movie land, why that hasn't gone over into video games is what I guess I'm trying to drive at it. I don't understand why video games are exempt from that unless they just think that they would need to do that more with like 90s and 2000s properties because video game base is perceived as being millennials and younger and not us.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
How come Red Dead Redemption 2 was a disappointment, Michael?
I just wasn't I wasn't a huge fan of the some of the game mechanics. I did not like the way that the combat system played out, and I also didn't like the way that you could be out in the middle of nowhere, literally the middle of nowhere, where you know that it would take you 10 minutes of riding to get back to a place in real time, and yet somebody sees you and turns and gallops away. And even though it should take them 10 minutes, the game immediately is like, you're now wanted by the law. And it's like, how? He hasn't gotten back to the law yet.
Amazingly expeditious justice system.
It's just, it was ridiculous how that game worked. Like one time I saved somebody from being robbed.
There's your first mistake.
And because I saved that person from being robbed at the same time as somebody else came over the rise and saw me shoot the guy off his horse who was trying to kill a family, he saw me kill a guy and he immediately says, I gotta go get the law. And suddenly I was wanted. And it was
that sounds annoying.
It's really annoying. The game just annoyed the crap out of me.
Michael Johnson says, did anyone play the Monty Python game? I had a boyfriend once who had the Monty Python computer game installed on my computer to play it, and it was really obnoxious. That's all I can say about that. I don't know. I'm sure there are probably multiple Monty Python games out there in the world.
I've never played a Monty Python game, so...
Carmine Words says, did either of you play Intellivision much? I played so much in the 80s, loved it. Melinda, your hair is looking great today. Also, thank you, I watched it. Did you ever play Ultima 4 best game ever? I have definitely not heard of that.
I played one of the Ultimas on the NES, and at the time I was too young to understand turn-based party system RPG, the way that game worked. I admit that I got frustrated, and I went back into the castle and picked a fight with the king himself and murdered him, and the castle was filled with thieves at that point, and I realized that I had kind of broken the game, and so I turned it off and took it back to Blockbuster Video.
R4M9 says, what do you think about Heavy Rain? I actually have Heavy Rain.
Is that the Morgan Freeman movie?
No. I mean, maybe, but...
We just want the money!
What he's talking about is the game that is about a serial killer. It's a, what are those choose your own adventure style games. I'm sure they have a name that I don't know, but it's like you get all this text, you go around collecting clues, you walk around, you read stuff, you collect clues. It's kind of a slower paced non-action, and then in conversations you get to choose what answer you're going to give, and all the decisions you make determine whether or not you saved the last victim. That's Anyway, it's hard.
Someone's asking about the Metal Gear Solid series. I remember playing that the original Metal Gear Solid in college. My roommate had a PlayStation, and I just remember constantly watching him sneak around disguised as a cardboard box, and the constant screaming over the radio of "Snake" every time you'd get killed, which he got killed a lot. I thought the game looked pretty cool. I actually tried to run a PlayStation emulator a few years ago, and this is no knock against that game specifically, but I learned the hard way that PlayStation 1 3D gaming is really, really difficult to readjust to. It was revolutionary at the time, but those games visually do not hold up even close to Super Nintendo in terms of replayability because of the primitive nature of the polygons. So I really like the concept of the series, but I never followed it very much. I'm more of a history kind of person, so modern tactical doesn't do it for me. Like when Call of Duty went from World War II into modern warfare, I was out. I was like, don't really care. Same thing with, sneak around games. I much prefer a game where you're a feudal ninja than I do you being like Metal Gear guy. But that's just my aesthetic preference.
Me too. Clobbering time. Hey, Mike, how's it going? He says, "Hey, pals, did they ever have a Tron game for a home system back when the film came out? I can't recall."
Tron had 2 arcade games.
Home system, he says.
Oh, I don't know. I don't recall if there was a home system game at all. Not even aware. I'd have to go look that up.
If you guys in the chat know, which you probably do, just yell it out. Steve Johnson says Atari did, so I don't know if he's talking about this or some other question. I don't remember a Tron Atari game, but that doesn't mean it wasn't in existence. So, what's your take on the whole Polybius legend? People keep talking about this in the chat, so we'll go ahead and bring that up.
What's your take on that? Because we watched that again recently.
I don't know. I don't really care either. Are you talking about whether the game existed or whether it killed a bunch of people?
Well, I'm going to discount the whole idea that it killed a bunch of people.
Okay, I'm going to discount that as well. I think that's...
like,
if it was some sort of, like, deep CIA thing, like, the payoff for that doesn't seem worth the investment. Like, if you're just looking at it, if you're using common sense and going, okay, follow the money. How much money would it take to develop a game that's going to kill people, and to what end? Like, why? It just seems like a really, percentage-wise, you're not going to kill enough people to make it worth the investment. It's just my opinion. You do better to, like, figure out how to put anthrax in the water supply. I'm not suggesting anyone does any of these things. I'm just saying, strategically, it's not a good choice.
We've studied the Russian brain. And we know that if we put these arcade games in strategic spots in Moscow around the Kremlin, they'll play them and then they'll go mad and die.
I mean, I guess it's possible that somewhere in a localized area that some gaming company was trying to, like a startup was trying, and then because it was the 80s, there's no record of a lot of that stuff. So possibly, right. I don't know that you're ever going to be able to prove it. Right. There's a lot of actual murder cases that were from that time period that we can't get evidence because it's all lost. That's how quickly 30 years, like, you can lose even within the documented historical period. If historic archaeology has taught me nothing else, it's that we don't keep the best records of things we consider to be mundane, like locations of payphones, which would be really helpful to know for, like, future criminal cases. Oh, I made a phone call from that Best Buy over there, and we have no way of verifying whether there was ever even a payphone in that location because it was in the 80s. So stuff like that, you're just never going to know, I think. Vinkman, whoa. Thank you for the super chat. He says, thoughts on the PS4 Spider-Man? I hate that costume.
Yeah, I bought that game, I beat that game, and within seconds of starting the game, I changed over into the classic costume and never went back. I didn't even wear any of the special costumes to get special abilities. I literally just wore the classic costume the entire game. And I was ticked when at the very end of the game for the final boss, you not only have cutscenes that for the only time in the game don't reflect what you're wearing, but then you're forced to wear some dumb special outfit. I was livid
Wasn't
about
that
that.
true in the Lara Croft game too?
Yes, it was for the Lara Croft game as well. I was livid about that, but I just wore the classic outfit the entire game otherwise. So
Simon Parkin says, Melinda and Michael, or Michael and Melinda rather, did you ever play Star Wars Galaxies, the original Star Wars MMORPG? I don't think either one of us likes MMORPGs.
I know of it. I didn't play it. I did play Warcraft and Lord of the Rings online and Conan online. I played those three, but I never got around to playing Star Wars Galaxies. Tim and Aaron really like Star Wars Galaxies. They talk about it a lot. So if they're in the chat,
Aaron says it was great.
yeah.
Let's see. Thoughts on the Metal Gear Solid series? Did you already talk about Metal Gear?
Yes,
Okay,
we did.
I thought so.
Super chat. Any favorite later 80s arcade games? Outrun, Gauntlet, Double Dragon. I love Double Dragon. Double Dragon got me back into the arcade. It was probably the arcade game after Star Wars that really piqued my interest. And it's why I asked for Double Dragon, the Nintendo game, as my first game next to Super Mario Brothers for my new Nintendo. And I couldn't have been more disappointed in the Nintendo port for that because the arcade game was so cool.
What was that game that we played in that arcade that time that had the lady that was like a horsey, half
Golden
horsey?
Axe. That was Golden Axe 3, or Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, whatever it was called. That wasn't the first Golden Axe, but it was one of the major installments.
I enjoyed that, and I was an adult obviously when I played it, but we have video. I don't think we
Right.
have video of me playing it maybe, but we have video of me talking about how fun it was. So I don't know if that fits into that genre.
Right.
Did you play RoboCop in the arcade?
Yeah, I loved RoboCop. RoboCop was great. I loved that game. And that, again, so I got it on Nintendo, and what a letdown. Nintendo just kept letting me down with the arcade ports, and I never learned my lesson. I just kept trying.
Let's see. Michael, I saw your appearance on the Plastic Galaxy live stream. It was a good show.
Oh, thank you.
Loved RoboCop 2 on the C64 on cartridge. Okay.
Yeah, I have good memories of the first Gauntlet. I see a comment in there about the 1st Gauntlet. I remember when that was new at Showbiz, and we all just walked up to it going, wow, there's a game that you can have 4 players play, and look at those graphics. And that was a really shockingly cool game to see for the first time. I was there when it was new. I saw it all. It was crazy.
Matt says, do you remember that some games came with accessories? For example, the cassette tape of Platoon game for Amstrad came with maps and photos.
I mean, that's like the Spectrum game system, yeah, where they spin them off cassettes. And
How does that even work? I cannot
it
understand.
ingests everything off you have to load the whole game every time. So you put the cassette
okay.
in, and then the CPU like reads the cassette tape and loads everything up.
Okay. What is the hardest game you've ever defeated?
The hardest game I've ever defeated is probably the original X-Wing for PC. I beat that game legitimately without using any cheats, blowing up the Death Star and all that. And then, of course, I went through the expansions like B-Wing and stuff like that. I was in college and had an inferior computer when Alliance came out, so I've only played a little bit of Alliance. But as far as the original X-Wing goes and TIE Fighter, I've beaten both of those games. And the X-Wing Death Star level over Yavin is very, very difficult. And I beat that legitimately without any cheats.
Vinkman says, favorite arcade game? Mine's the 92 Konami X-Men.
Ooh, that would definitely be up there for me, Venkman,
I
because
love that.
yeah, that's a
I've
great.
played that on a simulator that
Yeah,
you had,
right.
and it was so much fun, especially with endless quarters. It
Yeah,
was great.
yeah.
I would never have survived probably if I was just playing it regular, but
We put so many quarters into the '92 X-Men game. I would if it's there are three major arcade games in my memory that, even though I didn't get to play some of them very much, they were very impactful. Uh, X-Men Arcade. I don't want to put these in any particular order, but X-Men Arcade from Konami, the one that Vinkman just mentioned, is one. Temple of Doom, the Indiana Jones game, is another, and then the original Star Wars arcade game is the third. Those are the three that really stuck with me as a play experience.
so when you go back now and you play some of these older games, how do you find they compare to modern games in terms of being hard or easy or whatever?
Some of the older games are a lot harder and more difficult in certain ways. Some people complain that older games are repetitive. I actually find that newer games are more repetitive in what you do. Newer games, every button's mapped out. They tell you exactly what to do. Uh, for example, X-Wing, the original PC X-Wing, far, far, far more difficult than the latest Tomb Raider game. Tomb Raider, the newest Tomb Raider game, and I'm a huge fan of the Tomb Raider franchise, it had some difficult moments you had to try a few times. But overall, it was much faster. Whereas with the X-Wing thing, it was like, okay, this is going to take me some time and skill building. And, I don't mean in-game skill building. There was no in-game skill building. Like, you didn't get faster ships or better this or
Right.
new strength. It was just more of, I got to go back and play some earlier again to get better
Better at that skill.
flying the ship
Yeah.
and shoot. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was true in Zelda for me too, but I think the difference to me, just as being someone who, like you said, skipped over a lot of games, the original games, like when you died, like a lot of times 3 times, that's it.
Right.
And you have to literally start all the way from the beginning. And by the time you ever beat the game, you have done those things so many times that you have built up the muscle memory.
Right.
It's almost like when I used to play piano and like you play a song and practice it so many times that you could almost play it in your sleep. Like you just know where your fingers are supposed to go and it's just natural.
Yeah.
Modern games don't do that though.
No, they don't.
Like it's very like modern games to me feel like, especially those ones where you have to memorize sequences to make it do something, remind me of kick, punch. It's all in the mind. You guys know the rest, and I don't know the rest. But
I had that.
Rappa, the Rappa, or whatever it's called. It's like that. Hit the square, hit the triangle, hit the circle, hit them in this order, and then you win.
I had that muscle memory for the original Mega Man, the original Nintendo Star Wars game, and a few others. And it is true that, like, I would beat Mega Man just when I got bored. I got so familiar with the original Mega Man, I could just beat it when I was bored. But certain other games just never clicked with me. Like the original Super Mario Brothers, I beat it one time, and I never beat it again.
King Eric the Great the First says, "Did you ever get any of the Activision patches?"
No, I never had an Activision patch.
Castlemania Games, thanks for the super chat, says Goonies 2 best movie to video game. Also, Russian Attack best period piece game. These are both questions.
Russian Attack, played that a lot as a kid on Nintendo. Cool idea. Very much a arcade actioner. Never owned it, borrowed it a few times. Goonies 2, if I had known what the game was, because I was confused when I rented it. I thought it was an action game, not realizing it was like Zelda. If I had known it was like Zelda, then I would have taken a different tack with the game. I didn't, and so Goonies 2 remains one of those missed opportunities for me in childhood. I didn't understand what I was playing.
Jason Buchanan says Hollow Knight, and I know you've played a lot of
I've played Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight.
I haven't played Hollow Knight. I've played Shovel Knight, which is probably a totally different thing.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. That's See, it's my
Did I play Dragon's Lair, Dragon's Lair 2, or Space Ace? Yeah, I played the first two Dragon's Lairs in arcades. They were fun, different experiences. Really cool to see full motion animation.
Object of Hate. Thanks for the super chat. Says Michael, how many hours did it take you to beat Faxanadu? I know you did a vid on it. I love that game so much. Apparently, it can be speed run in 27 minutes. I love watching speed runs. That is so much fun.
I can't remember how long it took me to beat Faxanadu. I beat it in middle school in England. It probably took me several weeks of play because I wasn't allowed to always play video games on weeknights. Sometimes I was, but it depended on my workload and how much homework and scout meetings and whether or not I just wanted to play a video game that night. But it might have taken me several weeks over a period of a few nights.
Jody says, I loved with X-Wing that you had to toggle your energy between systems.
Yeah, and you really became adept at energy management. It was like, I need more for my shield, so I got to pull back on my engine power, or I need more for my lasers to recharge. It was a tense, very cool game, and why that hasn't been adapted with modern graphics is a sin. I mean, I would buy that game again in a heartbeat, and why that game hasn't been VR'd
seriously
just blows me away.
Anthony says, any love for the Castlevania games?
I love the original. Everybody loves Symphony of the Night, and I just do not like that game. Maybe it's because I had to watch my roommate in college play it way too much, but I just don't care for Symphony of the Night. I like the original Simon Belmont with the whip and the original music, and
I love the music.
Yeah.
You found years ago a really great
like a rock
orchestration that was very rock heavy. We've never been able to figure out where it came from or even find it again. Thank God we have a copy, but it's amazing. Have you played Castle Wolfenstein?
Yeah, I played Wolfenstein. I've played a number of the Wolfenstein games. I have the one for PS4 as well. Classic game, although the original Castle Wolfenstein 3D, which is the second game, that game actually now makes me motion sick when I play it because the 3D is cutting edge for its day, but it's now very primitive, and it's like, and it makes me nauseated.
Steven says they need to make a game like X-Wing, but a pod racer version.
Well, they did make Episode 1 Racer, which I played on N64, and I only played it enough to get to the actual movie race and beat that. The game kept going after that, and I was like, forget it. I don't care about the rest of this game. But I did beat it. I did beat it on the movie race, the full movie race.
Sorry. Let's see. I'm trying to let me pull
That's
up my
fine.
other
I see
list
something
of...
here. Somebody asked, in playing X-Wing on the PC, and it hit me, Star Wars The Force Awakens opening music sounded just like it. Yeah, when Melinda and I were sitting in the theater for Force Awakens and the theme started, I actually looked over to her and I said, this sounds like a PC game. The theme lacked any and all punch. It was really sad.
Michael, have you played any of the Batman Arkham games?
Yeah, I have Batman Arkham Asylum. I beat that. Good game. Did not play any of the others just because I just don't have a lot of time to play video games. I
literally have to tell him, you need to go downstairs and play a video game for the afternoon.
Yeah, she does. And
I mean, how many relationships do you know like that?
Most of the time, though, I don't jump out of my seat for a video game unless the next Tomb Raiders come out. You know?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Jody was telling me that there's going to be a new Star Wars Lego game that's going to have all 9 of the movies, which is kind of a bummer because I really don't care anything about the last stuff, of course, but I'm thinking like my favorite part of that original Star Wars game, which you had on PC, I think, was playing General Grievous.
Right.
Like the prequels, and we talked about it at the time, the prequels make for an amazing video game, especially a comedic video game. Like they are perfect for that. They're colorful and they're wacky and kind of dumb, but entertaining, like as a video game. So I almost wish I could just play the prequels. because they're
Right.
goofy.
Well, the original Star Wars Lego game for PC was just the prequels, and then they made the Star Wars original trilogy game, and then they packaged them together.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah, I'm just wondering what this new game is going to be like. We'll see. So let's see. King Eric the Great, the First. Did you play Wizardry? Thoughts on text games?
I played text games. I played a few text-based games in my time.
Even
But
I have.
Yeah, I want to say I played Wizardry, but I cannot recall specifically.
Are you talking about like a text game, like a DOS text game?
Yeah, where it's like go
Yeah,
north,
yeah.
and then
I
it
played
tells
one
you.
too, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was
Uh-huh.
like literally just a typing game.
Right, yeah.
I've heard that there's a cell phone game that's like that, where basically you guys probably know what I'm talking about. There's supposedly someone who's trapped on like Saturn or somewhere, like an astronaut, and he somehow like manages to get his communications equipment to work, but it will only text message you. So the whole game is played like you're the contact on Earth trying to help this astronaut that's like on another planet, and you like just type back and forth to him.
Yeah,
and
but see,
stuff
the
like
problem with text-based games now for smartphones is that the smartphone will constantly autocorrect your commands, and you'll just die in seconds because the phone will never actually let you type the words you want to use.
that. Wow, that's probably true. Simon says, I loved the original Hobbit text adventure. You know, I was looking during this whole lockdown thing, I was really desperately looking for a cell phone game that I could actually enjoy. And finding the right kind of game that you could play on a cell phone successfully is very difficult for me. So I was looking and I was like, you know what I would love is a Lord of the Rings inspired type of game. Like, not just inspired, but like literally Lord of the Rings, something. And there are none.
Yeah.
I was so bummed. I was like, how is that possible that there's not anything at all? But oh well. I guess that's whatever. Jody says there is an X-Wing VR mission in Star Wars Battlefront for PS4, but it's way too short.
Yeah, and that's why I heard that too, Jody, and that's why I never bothered to get all that equipment to play that game. I was like, well, if it's only one level and it's real short, why do it?
Did you ever play Willow?
The Nintendo game or the arcade game? Because I played both. I own Willow on NES and have since I was a kid. Beat that. That's a great Nintendo game. It's like The Legend of Zelda's true sequel because Adventure of Link sucked. And really, really good game. I played the arcade game a number of times. Good actioner. It's a platformer with, sort of like hack and slash type stuff. Yeah, not a bad game in its own right, but the Nintendo game rocks. The Nintendo game is great.
What is your worst childhood gaming experience? Well, I have.
Oh, I got one. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I had an opening.
Go ahead.
So there was an Atari game called Haunted House, which apparently was kind of more rare, like we were talking about earlier. For you, like I owned it, and so for me, it was a really common game. But I don't think a lot of people played it. It sucked, but because I owned it and I played it a lot, I like it. And it has nostalgia for me, but it's like the dumbest game ever, where you're just like walking around and you're in darkness and you're trying to find all these little things inside this maze to try to like, you have to get all these keys and then open the doors and then get the things to get the things. And then
Right.
it's sort of like the Last Jedi in that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was yours?
Maybe you're thinking of Rise of Skywalker.
Well, that's what I meant. Sorry. All a blur. Didn't see it.
My worst video game experience as a child was Spelunker for the NES. Spelunker was the worst wasted rental I've ever had. What a terrible nightmare of a game. Just horrendous play control, horrendous game mechanics. I think every copy of Spelunker should be, augured through and burned. Like, just terrible, terrible game.
Someone says, wait, where did I see that? Someone here says, you take that back, Zelda 2 is better than Zelda 1. I think that's just a matter of opinion. People are talking about, let's see, where was a good question? Somebody was saying, was there a really underrated game or a game that didn't get as much notoriety that you would think should have been more popular? I can't find the question.
Willow for sure. The NES Willow game should have been more popular than it was. I think the general audience consensus toward the movie kept that game down, and that game Capcom pulled out all the stops. That game was great. I'm trying to think of another game that should have gotten more notoriety than it did. Looking back through my library, because I ended up getting a lot of the games that nobody else wanted. Like I ended up really liking the Dick Tracy NES game, but I figured out how to work the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talked about that when we watched. Was it AVGN talking about it? Yeah.
The Rocketeer was a great Nintendo game. I really liked that one. I really liked Robin Hood Prince of Thieves for the NES. I thought that was a killer game. But again, I was into, I liked Faxanadu. Faxanadu didn't get a lot of...
I think it's the name.
Faxanadu? I loved Faxanadu. I thought it was awesome, and it didn't get any
I mean, it's just such a weird blend of making me think of both sending a document through an archaic phone system and Olivia Newton-John.
Wow.
I mean, I kind of picture Olivia Newton-John with leg warmers and like a leotard on, standing by the fax machine, like while it like sounds like 90s internet hookup sounds. It's kind of a weird combo. It's weird. Mark, thank you for the super chat. He says, I realize you're discussing console platforms, but if you go PC, there is Lord of the Rings War or the
Of the Ring.
the Ring video game. Yeah, I know there are some other games. I guess I'm just lazy. I mean, if they had one on the Switch, I would definitely look at that. Mm-hmm. But my PC is this.
Right.
And yeah, I do have it set up with like double screens and all of that stuff in my office, but I usually have my work laptop hooked up to that, and it's kind of just like, I'm just kind of ultimately lazy.
Wow.
And I don't want to like have to unhook all my stuff and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I want to play it, but only if it's really easy for me.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I just don't care that much. But thank you for the option. I guess depending on how long I'm trapped in my house, I may change my laziness level to accommodate. What other Lord of the Rings games would you guys advise? Please yell them out. Melinda, did you play Witcher 3 on Switch? Nope, that sounds hard. So, like, what was that game I got that was, like, with all the really gross people who get leprosy and diseases, but it's, like, it seemed like the perfect game for me, but it's, like, a game where you walk around and you know what I'm talking about.
Not Life is Strange.
The guy's like, no, it's on the Switch.
Well, your Life is Strange is also on the Switch, too.
And the guy's, like, in the back of, like, a wagon, and it's like a D&D style game.
Oh, you're talking about,
Skyrim.
Skyrim.
Yeah, King Eric the Great. Melinda just plays Skyrim. I don't like Skyrim because I don't like things that are gross and dirty. And, like, everyone has, like, leprosy and boils and
You literally
filth.
watch Nightmare on Elm Street and you watch zombie movies like Dawn of the Dead, and you're going to tell me that you don't like gross things in a video game.
No, I'm just saying, like,
No.
It's not that they're gross. It's just that, like, I don't want to have, like lice that are, like, taking me down. I don't want to have to think about that in the background. Like, I want to be, like, you know what I want is to be, like, a cool, like, a cat. I want to be a cat that's, like, cool looking with, like, cool colors and, like, huge eyes, and I run around and I can pull out a sword and murder people and then steal their treasure. Yeah, that sounds great. And it has to look really beautiful. I don't want a platformer lame thing. I want it to be like an open world style, really pretty, like Zelda, with a great soundtrack. Lots of costume changes.
Oh my god. Oh.
What? That's not too much to ask. I mean, I think people keep saying we can't figure you out, Melinda. I know. I thought I would like it. I was so bummed I got it, and then I was just like, ew. Like, every character is really ugly, and they walk around, and the first thing, like, first time, like, you have to kill animals, so that, like, I'm not gonna do that, even in a video game, so that's out. I don't want to have to try to, No. I don't want to have to find cures for like leprosy. Like if I wanted to do that, I would start playing Epidemiology the game. Or I would just live in our modern times. I mean, we're already living with viral loads everywhere. I don't want to think about that. Jesus. I'm not wrong. Skyrim, I will say this. Skyrim does have an amazing soundtrack. That was honestly one of the reasons that I got the game, was because I started listening to it. A coworker was like, "You should play Skyrim. You would love it." And I mean, you would think that I would, and I kept playing it going, "I should like this." It was kind of like listening to the Black Album. It's like, I should like this. It's Metallica. And then I was like, "No, I don't like this." I don't know. You guys know video games more than me. You tell me. The biggest problem with Breath of the Wild for me is that it's got too many puzzles. Take out all the puzzles out of it, and it's a great, perfect game for me.
What's that one game where you're just like that white dog?
Oh my god, Okami. That's what...
And yet it has those puzzles that are so frustrating.
If it didn't have the puzzles, like the puzzles in that game are mandatory, and you can't progress in the plot unless you... And you tried to do it too, and it's really hard.
It's really hard.
And I don't like that. Michael, has Melinda ever played Brutal Legend? Lots of awesome combat, a metal theme, and soundtrack.
I don't think she has, no. But thank you for the recommendation. I'll do anything to find her a video game that she will enjoy.
I don't like to be scared. I just like... I don't know. I want a visually lovely game where there is some combat without puzzles.
Look, I just like atmosphere, and I do like being a solo character.
Yes.
I'm not as much into being a whole group of people. My favorite gaming experiences have always been either first person or very atmospheric third person. So atmospheric third person is Tomb Raider, like the original Tomb Raider all the way through the latest games. That's what those games are. First person stuff is like World War II Call of Duty or simulated X-Wing combat. Dark Forces I thought was great. Yeah, that's kind of where I live. If you're going to be anything slightly different, I mean, I've been playing Sekiro. Not a bad game, but very difficult. Been playing PS4's Deadpool game just because it's really, really funny. I've played through that like 3 times because it's hilarious.
Mark, thank you for the super chat. He says, every game you want to play doesn't exist on console. Age of Conan would be up your alley, but again, PC. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like, you know, I have a Steam account, so if any of these are like available through Steam, I'd be willing to like kind of try those things out in that way. Castlemania Game says, LOL, she's literally describing Shadows of Mordor. Yeah, I've actually looked into that, but it's just a matter of me getting off my butt and trying to do that, so. I'm an anomaly. Yeah, I guess I am. I think part of it is just that I don't like a lot of stuff because I don't have the background in it. So for me, it's such an uphill battle to learn like all those stupid puzzles in Breath of the Wild when you go into those little temples and you have to,
or
like,
shrines or
honestly, I would pull up my laptop and just like cheat. Every single one of them I cheated. I just like, okay, I have to run over here. I have to do this thing. I have to hit this button. Okay, move on. Like, I found them to be really annoying.
But you need to do them.
You have to do them. It's just
Right.
like, but I'm literally like watching a video about it and then doing it. So it's not...
Well, that's the real problem with a lot of games, is that all the side quests that are supposed to add value to the game all end up being very repetitive. And so
sometimes
after the
very obtuse.
Yes, and after the third one, you're sick of doing that thing. Whether it's like Spider-Man for PS4, it's like, okay, how many random bank robberies do I really need to stop at this point? Because they're just getting in the way of me finishing the story. After the third one, the novelty's worn off, you know?
They say you can win the game without doing the shrines. Yeah, I know that. I've seen some of the playthroughs, but to me, like, the whole point to me, and that's one of the problems with Breath of the Wild, is you don't get to really level up too terribly much as Link. Like, that's frustrating to me.
Steve, thanks for the super chat. You say best Battle of Britain flight sim. If you have a recommendation, let me know, because I literally get vertigo when I search for Battle of Britain flight sims. There are so many, and I cannot figure. I've bought a few in the past, but then I realize I'm just chasing my tail back then because you have to stay with the latest up to date PC to get the best simulation experience. And we're finally in an era where the graphics can start to feel photorealistic, finally. So maybe now would be the time to invest in rudder pedals and a yoke and all that kind of stuff and throttle and all that. But I've never done that before. I've kind of just backed off and gone,
How do you feel about a VR version of that?
yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. But again, I don't know what to pick in the simulator category. I am lost.
Mark says, "You're an anomaly. I bought a Sega Master System just to play Space Harrier."
Wow, wow, that's a story for the ages right there. That's yeah.
People keep talking about Witcher. So, I know The Witcher is like a show now.
It was
Apparently,
originally a video
it
game.
was originally a video. Okay.
Or was it a comic book? I don't know.
See, that's the thing is I didn't know if it was a comic book first.
I
or
can't remember.
I'm sure you guys know. Yell it out. I'm not a Witcher expert. I haven't watched the show. I don't really have a lot of interest in it, but
I have played Secret Weapons over Normandy, Carlos. I played that in grad school, beat the game, great game, loved it. Again, it's more of an arcade-style action sim rather than a true flight sim. And that's what I would like to find out is what's the best in-cockpit Battle of Britain flight simulator that's out right now.
Carlos says you should play Secret Weapons over Normandy.
I just said that. That's literally what I just said.
Sorry. I'm trying to read these. Michael, you should check out PC 98 games. The music and graphics in them are extremely underrated, though sadly most of them are in Japanese and, well, something kids should not see. Okay.
Okay. I did see the Sega Genesis Ghostbusters. I've never played it though, but I saw it. I played the original Nintendo one and the Ghostbusters 2 on Nintendo, and then I played and owned the PC game, which has since been remastered. But I did not play the Genesis version.
You should really play Doom Eternal. The controls are amazing. Or, I'm sorry, the controls are smooth. The demons all look great. The weapons are fun. Mick Gordon's music is amazing. I can't recommend it enough. I've looked at it a couple of times. It looks really hard. I don't know. Have you played Doom before?
I played Doom and Doom 2. That was it. I've never played any Doom since.
Thoughts on upcoming PS5 and new Xbox?
More power to them. I have a feeling that these consoles that are coming out on the next round, will they even have a disc drive, or are you just going to have to download everything from a PlayStation store and have a monthly subscription?
So Michael's whole love of physical media extends to this as well.
Yeah.
Like I'll buy games through the Switch, like even crappy cheap free games or whatever, and put on my Switch and try them out because I'm like, I still haven't found a game that I just really love all the way through. But Michael wants to own the disc, so...
Well, like, for example, the reason that I ended up getting a PlayStation 4 was because the PC versions of Tomb Raider stopped being made in physical discs. You had to just buy everything on Steam. And I was like, no. And so I switched over and got a PS4 and bought the new Tomb Raider games on PS4 to have physical copies. If the next round of consoles doesn't support that kind of media, then I'm just out, I think. I don't want to have another financial IV in my arm pulling at me monthly for the privilege of playing games.
There's a comment that says, you guys are not really into games, I see, LOL. I'm not, admittedly, but that's just because I haven't found a game that I like yet.
Well...
But you are. I'll tell you, when the first Tomb Raider game, the newer Tomb Raider series came out, he was glued to that game.
But I'm a lifelong Tomb Raider fan, that's why.
Yeah, there are certain games that Michael will play straight for many, many, many hours and just be really obsessed with for a long period of time. So he's not in general just like a video gamer. That's why this channel isn't a video game channel.
Well, on top of that, this live stream was supposed to be about classic video
right.
games. And everybody's questions are like, Metal Gear and Witcher and everything modern, Elite this, and it's like, we'll try and answer them, but don't put us in that corner where it's like, you guys aren't that into gaming, even though you're a retro channel, but we're all asking you questions that aren't retro. That's called cognitive dissonance. Figure it out.
But I mean, you've played, like, there are a lot of, I think you may have answered it, but somebody asked earlier what your favorite NES game was. Like, people are trying to talk about some of these older games too. I don't know, like, to me, like, you're never gonna, in terms of just enjoyment and focus, like, you're not gonna ever top Cubert to me. For me, like, I just enjoy the absolute focus I have to have in order to play that game.
I played through a lot of series on the various consoles, going through. I had friends who had Genesis, and, then they had the PlayStation 1 and the Xbox and the PS2 and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very specific kind of game that hooks me in. But I'm a Super Mario Brothers 1 through 3 veteran. I'm a Legend of Zelda 1 and 2 veteran, and a Link to the Past owner, and Xanadu, Secret of Mana, all that. I've played through all the classics. I know all of those. And I've even played through modern classics, like Twisted Metal and Resident Evil 1 through 3. And, but there comes a certain point where everybody like has to pick a hobby, and it's like, if you have a toy collection like this and you have a video game collection like James Rolfe at AVGN, I don't want to know what you look like as a human being, because you must be so absorbed. You see what I'm saying?
And very wealthy.
And because there's not enough time. There's not enough time in a human life to absorb both of these hobbies 100%. There's just not. And, I prefer also having my history stuff and working on the DeLorean and reading. Reading used to be a thing for people. I like to still do that too. So when I'm talking about video games, if you define being a gamer, like a real gamer, as being like a real toy collector on this level, then no, I'm not.
Well, and we don't have a lot of time on our hands to play modern games, even if we had them.
I get sick of people who try to define what a real gamer is versus a real toy collector versus you guys aren't real gamer. That really annoys me.
I don't even think you're real, bro.
Yeah, it's just like, how do you really measure that?
Okay, I've got super chats. So Echo Base, thank you for the super chat. It says, check out DCS Best Flight Sim on PC, 100% real. DCS.
Okay, thanks.
Gotta go back. I missed. These are dropping off, so I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay. I've looked at Goat Simulator, haven't played it yet. Bruce Lombardo, thanks for the super chat. Did you two play the last Ninja games back in 87 to 90?
I heard about them, but I didn't play those. I'd love to play them.
Object of Hate says, tell us more about your Game Watch game.
Plus
Watch
those
games.
are my two childhood Game & Watch games, between the Vectrex and Contra. One of them was my brother's, and it was the one Mario Cement Factory, the smaller one. And then I had Mario Brothers, which is where you have dual screen, and you and Luigi, you're controlling both, trying to catch the packages on the conveyor belt of bottles at the bottling plant. We played those a lot in the car. This was before we ever had a Nintendo, before there was ever a Game Boy. I really liked the Game & Watch concept, but those were the two we grew up with.
Mark says, favorite Atari 2600 game. Mine's Mega Mania and Kaboom. Mine's Cubert.
My favorite Atari 2600 game is Pitfall. I thought Pitfall was great, even though you could just run left and win. I thought Pitfall was really cool.
Byron says, awesome Kylie shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, from her 1994 album.
I went with Judas Priest. Just firepower. It's awesome. Midnight's Edge After Dark, just sending some support and love.
Oh, thank you, Midnight's Edge. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Let's see. Does anybody remember how much a typical Atari game cost in 82 or an NES game in 89? That's a good question.
Anybody know how much what?
How much they cost back in the day. Like in 82, how much was an Atari game?
If you don't know how much an Atari game cost back in 1982, you're not a real gamer. You're just not. You're just not a serious gamer if you don't know that off the top of your head. Why don't you answer that, huh? Why don't you get up here, serious gamer, and answer that?
It's the person who asked that didn't say that.
No, not the person who asked it. The person
He wasn't yelling at you.
No,
whoever
I was
was
yelling at the guy saying, you guys aren't serious gamers.
I could find out for you
Because where is that person answering these questions right now? Where are they? Where are they?
It's okay.
No, it's not okay.
Jody says joining Midnight's Edge. I don't know if that means joining and giving us some love. Maybe they're just trying to soothe you.
Oh.
Wolfie, good to see you, man. He says, I grew up on old DOS PC in the early 90s and still love... Wow, flipped out of my... And still love DOS games, Commander Keen, etc. Have either of you tried DOSBox? It works on everything, Mac, Windows, easy to set up. Still love playing original TIE Fighter once a year.
I need to try DOSBox again. I tried it back like in 01, 02, and I never could get it to run right. So, because I wanted to play my Star Trek point-and-click adventures like Judgment Rights and 25th Anniversary. I need to attempt to use DOSBox again. Because I have a lot of old PC games for DOS sitting around that I've never gotten rid of that I really want to play. And so maybe DOSBox has gotten easier to use. I hope.
Vankman, thanks for the super chat. He says, are there any arcade games you regret not being able to finish? I was this close to beating the 90s Spider-Man arcade, but I ran out of quarters at the last second.
I emulated a lot of those games on MAME when I was in college just to beat them. So looking back, I don't think there are any that I haven't beaten through emulation, and a number of them I beat in the arcades just by blowing through quarters. I'm trying to remember if there was one I just couldn't beat in arcades. I guess it would be Temple of Doom because I wasn't around it enough. It disappeared from the arcade, the local arcade too quickly. But I since have beaten it through emulation.
Cute Fluff up above had made a comment about the whole true gaming thing. She says, I think you have to play all the classics to be a true gamer. You would appreciate where games came from before, or what games came before. I think, you can be really into any particular game and be a gamer, or even if you've only played modern games. I think that if you have played or if you were into something from the beginning, you're always going to feel like the depth of your knowledge is different than someone like who is just younger and who has only played modern games. And I think that's probably got some validity to it. Just, I am not a gamer, so I would never cop to being one. Like, I enjoy playing games to an extent, but I would never call myself like a full-on gamer, especially around other people who are. But like, I am a metalhead.
Don't give the people who have definitions of I'm a serious gamer versus you. Don't give them an inch.
I'm not trying to give them an inch, but I'm saying like from like being a music fan, people who have only listened to like Limp Bizkit and like modern stuff that's like new metal and beyond, who want to say, oh, well, I'm seriously into this stuff. I'm a serious, metalhead. It's like, okay, that may be fine, but I still have been around since the 80s listening to all kinds of different stuff. So I may not know everything, but you have to give people, I think of you as someone who is a serious gamer because you did play all of these original games and you know a lot about all of that. So
my point is everybody who got killed by that first Goomba in Super Mario Brothers knows what that feels like. Whether they play games a lot or not, they know what that feels like. Everybody poops once a day, okay?
No, not everybody.
You know what I mean.
Everybody poops. Sometimes.
Wow.
You're welcome. Okay. Tim Hay said, sick of the elitist crap. Yeah, I guess I'm just... I don't think it's about being elitist. I think it would be nice if people who have more limited knowledge had a little bit of respect for people who have a ton of knowledge. But that's not really the same as saying you're not a serious fill-in-the-blank, whatever it is.
Right.
Travels with Jason F. Thank you for the super chat. He says, thank you for keeping me semi-sane.
You are welcome.
How do we manage that? JD1989 says, true gamer is a term too subjective to be classified. Sounds like an overtly elitist statement made by someone with cognitive dissonance.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And then Mark C says, in 1982, Atari games averaged $20 to $40. The console averaged $75 to $125, depending on where you bought it and if it was on sale. That sounds about right.
And there were also those competitive consoles, like the Sears. Sears had one that would play Atari 2600 cartridges. You could get that at Sears for less or something like that. I can't remember exactly all the details, but AVGN goes through it.
Steve Johnson says, I think Melinda is right. It's like saying I listen to punk, but you don't know who the Sex Pistols are and have an iPod full of Avril Lavigne. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. So maybe it's not a perfect analogy, but I don't like the elitist crap either, though. Like, I can be really into, like, I know a lot about Sandman, but I don't know jack crap about other comics. And so I'm not going to walk into a comic book store and act like I know a lot about comics. I do have respect for it, though, and I don't act like I know everything. So I think part of it is an attitude of, like, however much you know, there's always going to be somebody who knows more. So just say, I'm really interested in this thing, and then everybody can just be nice. Maybe that's an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a concept. We should try it. Let's see. Ever play the Sega Genesis game Beavis and Butthead? I have not. Sounds fun. I do like Beavis and Butthead. It's probably...
Someone's asking me why I haven't gotten up yet to get something.
Yeah, they're all waiting for you to get up and get something.
I have been kind of thirsty. Do you want something?
You're going to leave me that long? Oh my God. Okay.
Do you want me to go get something?
Go. Feel free. I'll sit here and I'll answer. Go ahead. They want you to.
I'm going to go get... Can I get you anything?
No, I'll just have whatever you're having. I'll take it from you.
You're going to take a Pepsi from me. Like, you don't like Pepsi.
I don't want anything. I don't like anything.
Fine.
Imagine REM's Everybody Hurts changed to Everybody Poops. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I sing that to the cats, actually. When they come out of the room and they're all excited because they pooped. I sing that song to them. Everyone drink. So, ooh, ginger ale. That does sound good. I'll be having one of those later. So, Anthony, you're not a true soda fan. I am, but, you know. How was Night Court and Chill? Well, I can tell you about the Night Court. So we've been watching it pretty regularly. It's great. I pull out the knitting and I knit and we watch Night Court. And it's we're in season 3. So we're on the second bailiff, the second older lady bailiff. And we're already through the first couple of I can't think of my words. The Marquee Post person that there were 2 ladies that she replaced. So yeah, that's where we are. Travels with Jason. Thank you for the super chat. He says, I guess he's saying, can I have a Pepsi if you're offering? Or I can have some Pepsi. Go ahead. I know you don't like to drink after people.
No, you want some? Go ahead. Don't drop it. It's full.
Talk, please.
I'm talking. Let's see. Yeah, it's not tap water. It's Pepsi. And it's
Pepsi.
It's real sugar Pepsi, so it's not horrendous.
I am not a Pepsi fan.
It's not a Crystal Pepsi, but it is the choice of a new generation.
It needs to be Coke.
Jack, we would be happy to come to New York City Comic Con if we were invited and if the country wasn't on lockdown.
Peter Venkman says, Melinda, do you call Pepsi pop or soda? I actually call it a Coke, which is what it should be.
Wow.
If I don't call it a Coke, I call it a soda. Because I'm from Alabama and we call everything a Coke. And if Tim Witten were here, he would back me up on that. I was going to tell the story of the first time that you tried to teach me how to play NES.
Please.
So Michael was like, you're an adult now. I think you'd be able to play it. This was before I ever got the Switch. This was like 10 years ago. Like in our early dating times. Why are you rolling your eyes?
I'm not. I'm just the way you describe that early dating times.
I don't know.
In the Jurassic period.
In the Jurassic period when we first started dating that long ago. So we're sitting in Michael's apartment and he's trying to show me how to do it. And of course, my process for playing video games just involves a long stream of profanity. Just really angry. And I literally, much like driving stick shift, which I can never get the hang of, I just like in that I can't ever get out of first gear into second gear without the car stalling out. So in that game, it was Mario, and he would die. Start over. I was like, I'm gonna lose my freaking mind. How could you ever learn how to play this game? But there was a lot more profanity involved. Am I right? And then it just got worse and worse. And finally, Michael just sort of like backs away. He's like, maybe we should put this away for right now.
Well, that's been the real schism. Is that Melinda really likes board games and I don't, and I enjoy video games.
I love D&D, like tabletop.
I enjoy video games and she doesn't, and so it's constantly like, what do you want to do for fun? And it's like, not that, and then she's like, not that, and then it's like, oh, wah wah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Luckily, because I'm an only child, I'm very adept at playing multiplayer board games by myself.
That is really sad. That is.
I played a round of Pandemic by myself upstairs.
I offered to play Pandemic with her.
But he doesn't like it, so it's not as much fun.
She wouldn't accept my...
Because he gets really grumpy, especially with those more modern board games. Modern board games, much like modern video games, are way more complicated, and there's like 47 steps to every single turn. It's kind of crazy. Tronzoid, thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm in said state and obsessively refer to sodas as sodas. I mean, I call them sodas as well, but as a kid growing up, I always called them Cokes. Like, everything was a Coke. I want a Coke. As in, I want a 7-Up. So...
Yeah, I don't have any loyalty to Atlanta and their Coke obsession. I was born in Nashville.
I'm not from Atlanta either. It's not because I'm in Atlanta. It's just because I grew up with Coke and I like it better.
I hate tribalism. I don't believe in people's teams winning because they're the team.
But you like Pepsi better than Coke.
Right, but I don't wish death upon Coke.
I don't wish death upon Pepsi because you like it.
I don't believe that because I live in Atlanta, I should only drink Coke. Like I'm not going to row for the Atlanta team.
It is weird here in Atlanta when you go to like somewhere like O'Charlie's, which is I think based out of Tennessee, and they only have Pepsi products, and you're like, ugh.
Not me. I'm like, great.
I am. Because if there's any, like, I don't drink regular soda. I drink diet soda if I'm going to drink a soda. And so it's like, there's nothing worse than Diet Pepsi. It's just the worst.
I love this. See, this right here is exactly like this guy gets it. He's like, Michael, you're not a real cola fan. He has summarized exactly why the whole real fan argument is dumb. And I appreciate that.
People are saying that you need to get into tabletop games.
I was into tabletop games when I was like 12 to 14. I'm not insulting it. Look, I played tons of, role-playing games back then. Ice, Middle-earth, and West End games, Star Wars, and Redbox Dungeons and Dragons, and, all that stuff. And now it's like, hey... do you want to spend 8 hours with us, eating Cheetos and playing, a role-playing game? And I'm like, I don't have 8 hours to do that.
Well, now you do.
No, I don't. I'm always making videos.
Let's see. Pandemic is a wonderful game that causes depression. Yeah, it's even more so when you have to play it by yourself and you just go around and you're like, oh, I'm all these different characters. Now it's my turn. Okay. It's kind of cool, though. Like, it's doable. I used to play Trivial Pursuit as a kid by myself, which is my favorite game. Vinkman says, soda, the preferred drink of Bibbo from Superman.
Yeah, the Superman comics, yeah.
Mark says, if you're ever in the Pittsburgh area, try an RC Cola. The mineral content in the water makes it taste delicious where it's not the same anywhere else. Interesting.
Well, I'm very familiar with RC, but not from Pittsburgh area.
Interesting. Oh yeah, Aaron says another Alabama-ism is Coca-Cola. Yeah, absolutely. They say Coca-Cola. Yeah, it's not my favorite, but they do say it. Bruce Lombardo, Melinda, how many 5E games are you currently in? I don't even know what that is, so I'm guessing 0?
I don't know.
What is that?
I don't
Yell
know.
yell it out. Tell me what it is. Um, let's see. Were there any Back to the Future cameos in that video game date? That was, well, it wasn't really a date. It was maybe like 2 or 3 years into our dating, and I was just over hanging out with Michael for the weekend, and we were like, what do we do this weekend? Oh, let's pull out the NES and play with it. So it was less of a date, but it was.
I think it was around the time that I got you the Atari, and so we were revisiting a lot of consoles.
Oh yeah, that may be the truth. Let's see. What's that? A Twisted Sister quote on the live stream? What kind of man are you? Twisted Sister quote. Did you make a Twisted Sister quote?
What did I say?
I don't know. How about Tab? You know, my mom, when I was growing up, she drank so much Tab. Like, it was ridiculous. And one of my favorite stand-ups from the 80s was Bob Goldthwait's Share the Warmth. And he drinks like almost an entire 6-pack of Tab during the show. And he talks about how it has the same ingredients as a battery. It's really funny. That was a very 80s drink right there. Aren't we all playing Pandemic right now? Well, yes, we are. That's why it's kind of funny. After this, though, I'm going to be baking a cake. So I'm going to make Michael's favorite lemon pound cake from ingredients.
Huzzah!
Maybe it will put him in a better mood.
A.
D. Snyder, smart guy, but Zappa was smarter. I think they can both be cool, but Zappa was just very different, that's for sure. Sig says, you're all crazy. The only proper carbonated beverage is OK Soda, and truly it is the drink of the gods. I've never heard of that.
I like knee-high grape myself, but it's impossible to find.
I like cherry Coke. Delicious. With a Little Debbie spice cake. Best combo ever. Can't have it anymore. They don't make it. I would love to find the box from Little Debbie spice cakes just to see what the ingredients are and reverse engineer the recipe and make a homemade version of that. That's what I would love.
Go with God.
Can't find them. My mom would drink Crystal Light lemonade. Man, who didn't drink Crystal Light lemonade in the 80s?
I drank Crystal Light
That
lemonade.
was amazing. Michael, do you have and have you ever used the Nintendo Power Glove?
I never had the Power Glove. Never have owned one. I never got into the whole Power Glove fad. I actually really liked the NES Max, which is right there on display.
Wasn't that in the Wizard?
Yes. I liked the NES Max more than anything. I thought that was just the perfect Nintendo controller. I loved it.
RF Biker Scout says, how about video games based on board games? Well, to me, the fun thing about board games is not usually the game itself, but the conversation and interaction you have due to playing the game. So I like interacting with an actual real person who is in real time there, like laughing about something stupid that happened or whatever. So I think that is what I'm craving right now, is just other human interaction as opposed to a video game where you don't have any.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So, let's see. Are we done talking video games? And are we rather talking about Coke and Pepsi? Well, I guess we're just going wherever the conversation takes us at this point. I mean,
Did
do you have...
already read that one?
Jody said...
No, it was before that. This one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's a Power Glove. Okay. It gets hard on this chat to keep up with because it jumps around.
Knee-high grape, is that a MASH reference?
Jody, knee-high grape is a real drink. I had it a lot in Nashville as a child, where it's more distributed than it is in Atlanta because Coke has a chokehold on the soft drink industry here. But no, it's a real drink. But it happened to be used on MASH as well.
So what else? Like, if we're gonna be talking about video games, what else do you have? What games are you looking forward to? I know this is more modern, but are there any that are coming out that you know of that sound exciting? I know you were hoping that they would play a single or make a single player World War II game, which is just
Yeah,
something that they don't seem to want to
they're
make
not
anymore.
doing it. I need a World War II campaign shooter. I do not like multiplayer deathmatch. It gets old. I want a new World War II single player campaign game, first person shooter. They haven't come out with one. Um, and then the next Tomb Raider. Those are the only two things I can think of.
Favorite knee high is Peach. I'm old enough to remember the Happy Days character cans. I just see someone said that cherry Coke tastes like cough syrup, but to me, those purple and peach and knee high type drinks all taste like cough syrup.
I like them.
I mean, that's fine. I'm happy that you like them. I just feel like, especially like the grape ones, taste like Dimetapp.
Nah.
Yeah,
Nah.
100%.
No.
Just carbonated Dimetapp,
No.
which I think is good. I like Dimetapp. It's just a lot. It's a lot of sugar.
Nah.
Are there any donation boxes disinfected enough for today's stream?
Yes, there
Thank
are.
you for that.
Good call.
You know why? Because twofold. Number one, it makes Michael get up. And number two, it gives us some cool stuff to open.
I will go get them.
We actually ventured out into the world the other day just for this purpose, so that we would have some cool stuff to open for you guys. And they have been sitting outside disinfecting. Yeah. Jason says, man, Melinda got the good cough syrup. Dude, I had strep throat so often as a kid that, I mean, I had all the cough syrup. Do you remember the flavor of, like, penicillin when you were a kid? Like, it had this bubblegum flavor. Well, my hairstylist, she, like, gave me this shampoo conditioner that comes from, like, Sweden or somewhere like that. And I opened it, and it was like this memory jog because I smelled it and it smelled exactly like penicillin when I was a kid, and I was sick. I had strep throat like 3 or 4 times every year that I was a kid until I was like 15 years old when I had my tonsils removed. And I'm telling you, the smell of that stuff, I will never forget it as long as I live. So yeah, he polished off that classic Pepsi. You know what? Michael, when he has a soda, he literally just drinks the whole thing. I've never seen anything like it. It's very unique. Dr. Pepper is actually a great drink if we're talking more soda pops. There, see, I worked in a pop for you guys in the Midwest. All right, guys. Ask me a question. Ask me anything. Jody says, "Yeah, Michael blames me for sending him out in the world to go to the PO box." He does blame you, Jody, but that's okay. You weren't the only person who would send us stuff, so it was good that we did that. Scott says, Melinda, did you ever experience the joys of losing an entire day no thanks to Actified syrup as a child? Actifed. I think I was so used to taking that stuff that, I mean, my parents made me go to school anyway, so my parents were those parents, so, like, I would have a fever of 102 or 103, and they would still say, you're fine, and they would send me to school. So if Actifed knocked me out, I would have to go to school anyway, so, I know it probably sounds like I'm saying I walked uphill both ways to school, but that was just my reality, so, Saturday Supercade, yeah, I mean, I watched that a lot.
All right, I'm here.
How goth am I on a scale of 1 to 10? I think I'm only like a 4, because I don't, there's a lot of like goth stuff that's not really me. I'm more of a metal chick than a goth chick.
All right, this is from Matt Swafford at Reclaimers Vintage Toys. He's on Instagram.
Ask Michael if he's ever played the World War II game Brothers in Arms.
I haven't. I've played Soldiers at War. I haven't played Brothers in Arms. I'll look it up. This is a Mask motorcycle.
Best TV cartoon based on a video game.
I always liked Pole Position. I thought Pole Position was the coolest one.
I think because it's better than the game.
Yeah.
Echo Base Network, thank you for the super chat. He says, did you ever play Commodore 64? I think I did. I don't remember it a lot. DCS has World War II campaigns. Every button in the cockpit works, and you have to learn it just like learning to fly a real plane. You got flight plans and everything.
DCS?
That's the one that somebody mentioned earlier in the chat and said that you needed to play.
What's DCS stand for?
Yell it out, guys. What does DCS stand for? I feel like I'm... On a scale of 1 to 10, how metal are you? I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, so we have
Medium high?
we have a mask collection here that includes...
Is that man naked?
No, it's Miles Mayhem in a khaki suit.
His suit is the same color as his skin.
It includes the driver of the motorcycle, ostensibly, and then Miles Mayhem and Matt Tracker with their accessory pack gear.
Digital Combat System is what it stands for.
Digital Combat System.
Or Digital Combat Simulator.
Digital Combat Simulator is the World War II game?
DCS, yes.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. That's helpful.
All right, so that's all that box has to offer. Thank you, Matt. This is awesome.
Thank you, Matt. Here's a question for Easter. What, if anything, is your favorite film about Jesus? Is there a film about Jesus?
There are a number of them. Gosh, you know what? With
Jay and Silent Bob?
You know what? With the controversy that I get over just sail barges, the last thing I want to do is talk about movies about Jesus that I like versus ones that I don't. That would just... I mean, if people are already after me over HasLab, can you imagine what would happen if I said something about Jesus movies? Like...
Yeah,
nah.
I feel like several of our other teammates might be a better person to answer that question, like Aaron or Tim. Yeah.
This is from Robert Brown.
Someone said your face then was priceless.
What? Asking about the Jesus movies?
Yeah, Dogma. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Oh my God.
Is this from Jody?
No, it's from Rob Brown.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, brace yourselves.
Oh, Life of Brian. That's a good one. Monty Python.
So, he made a ham bone McGillicuddy.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I'm going to pick that up the camera.
You really have to. Does he have the weapon you said?
I don't recall what weapon I said he came with.
It comes with a yellow lightsaber. That's pretty great.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Rob wins. There's...
Oh, did that show up to you guys?
What?
Yeah, it did. No, it did. Okay.
Oh, he gave me a yellow pop-up lightsaber to go with my R2-D2. That's cool. Thank you, Rob. That is awesome. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. I'm putting him in my Bespin display with my vintage Ugnaught for sure.
That's pretty awesome. He says, "Whoa, someone cut the head off of a blue snaggletooth."
No. It's a Chris Smith snaggletooth. It's a Chris Smith blue snag, I'm sure. And I made a joke in a Too Frequently Asked Questions video because people always ask me who's my favorite Star Wars figure. And I jokingly just made up on the spot a guy named Hambone McGillicuddy, who was the head of the Ugnaught basketball team. And I photoshopped that on... Yeah, and so... But no one took the head off of an actual blue snaggletooth.
No blue snaggletooths were harmed during the making of this action figure.
Right.
Let's see. How many of these boxes do you have?
This will be third from the last. So this says Oh, this is from Jody. uh, okay. Jody, what have you done? Oh, it's candy.
I literally was about to say the words, I hope there's candy in there.
At least, or maybe it just comes.
Maybe it's in a candy box just to like
candy
mess
box.
with my brain.
Maybe that's what's going on.
Love the Zodak video you did, Mike.
Oh, thank you. We're doing more. I'm scripting the next one right now. Let's see. What the heck is going on with this? Tiger Bomb Red.
Tiger Bomb and...
Wait, what is it? Oh, this is a tiny gun star from Last Starfighter. Very, very small.
Jody says, read the note out loud in all caps.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Hey, Michael, I noticed when Tony got his troop carrier from the Z-Force line, you were a bit jealous. I found you one. Unfortunately, 3 3/4 inch scale was out of my price range. Ah, so it is a Z-Force APC or ATC in tiny, tiny scale. Can you see it? And then the gun star.
Do you remember it?
Do you
Do
remember
you remember it? Hey, if you don't watch Red Letter Media, you should.
And then the rest of it's just... Oh, he's just packaging it real carefully. Cool, thanks, Jody.
Do you want to take it up to the camera so people can actually see it?
Do they want me to do that?
I mean, I assume maybe.
Okay.
RetroBlasting, did you ever collect the Starcom toys? We do have some Starcom toys. So, will we ever see Broken Vader, Skeletor, and Rock and Roll in the same video?
I guess anything's possible. Their scales are a little off, but you're right. They've never met, have they? They kind of stay in their own universes. All right, this is also from Jody.
Jody, the hero of the live stream.
I have a feeling this is a CD.
Maybe it's for me.
Probably is. Oh, it's the Iron Eagle soundtrack. Awesome.
Oh, that's definitely not for me.
Oh, that's going to be great. I'm going to listen to this afternoon. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All right, we're down to the last box.
Anthony says, have you guys ever hung out with AVGN or the Red Letter Media guys? Would you guys be on their show or have them on yours? You know what? I would love to hang out with any of those guys. They're different but very cool. I feel like whether it was on their channel or not, like I would just love to sit and have like an hour or two long conversation with any of the Red Letter Media guys, especially. But I feel like it would just be so entertaining and awesome. Michael looks concerned or freaked out or...
Oh my gosh. Somebody sent me...
Packing materials.
It's from Carl.
Carl!
Holy cow.
Still waiting for Mike and Rich's Picard finale review. It will be epic. Yes, I am too. Did you see the Glenn Danzig thing that they covered? It was really good. Definitely go watch that. Veronica, awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Are you gonna read that? Were you supposed to read that?
It says, "Dear RetroBlasting, hope you enjoy what is in the box. On the back of the...
On the back of this is 3
aerials for Silent Attack,
Recondo
Silent Attack, and for what is in the box. Keep up the great work. Regards, Carl. What's everyone laughing about?
I'm laughing at them talking about that Veronica review from Red Letter Media and Glenn Danzig not being good at,
For Melinda. This is for you. Do you want me
Is
to...
it a llama with a hat? Because, Carl, if you haven't seen that...
Okay, first I'm going to open this for you.
Do we collect any toys pre-Star Wars 1977?
Yeah, I like to collect... I'm trying to get the Amigo Planet of the Apes stuff, and I want some of the $6 Million Man Bionic 6 stuff. I haven't really collected much of it yet. Like, I'd love to have a Lindsay Wagner Bionic Woman figure. And I'd also really like to get a lot of the vintage Action Man and G.I. Joe material that I don't have yet. I have some of it. I don't have a lot of it. Wow, this is... Thanks.
They say there's something on the back of the letter. Yeah, I don't think it's pertinent to read. This says, not to sound scary, but is it safe to handle box stuff now because of the fear of infection from people you don't know? Well, this has been sitting in our garage for like more than 3 days, and based on everything that I have researched, the virus in general would be dead after usually 2, but definitely by 3 days. But we will be washing our hands after this just to be on the safe side. There's a great science-based podcast called This Week in Virology, also known as TWIV. And it's full of virologists and scientists. They have guest scientists and doctors and people, epidemiologists, all kinds of cool people talking about the actual science that's literally happening right now in real time with all of this. So I listen to that pretty regularly. It's quite long, and they put out 1 or 2 a week. So if you're interested in the science, not just from like news people who aren't scientists, but from actual scientists, it's a really cool resource. So I would recommend that.
Sorry, this is just a very well-wrapped parcel, and it's taking some time.
What does RetroBlasting think of the John Landis movies from the 80s? John Landis is not Michael's favorite.
It's not the material he's made, it's the person that he is. I have a real problem with John Landis.
And Michael actually really loves Vic Morrow, so if you know anything about what happened, you'll understand why it's not.
Yeah, John Landis has... He escaped criminal prosecution for what he did to Vic Morrow, and that is unforgivable, not just because it's Vic Morrow, but because it was a crime, and he should have been held to account for that.
They're saying that it looks like he taped something to the back of that letter.
Oh yeah, you're right, he did. I wouldn't have thrown it away until I checked it, but thank you for letting me know.
Yes, it was the Twilight Zone accident of 1982.
This is for you, Melinda. It is... Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love this. Do you know what it is?
No, I can't see.
Do you remember it?
Do you remember? Oh my god! Look how cute he is.
This must be the...
Do you even lift, bro?
I don't want to break.
Look at his skinny little arms. Look how cute he is.
I'll pull these down so people can see.
Oh, you can see him. Wow, I can feel him moving.
And look,
stuff.
he comes with a crown. So,
Is that supposed to do that?
yeah, it's part of his head motion.
I like him better with his mouth open.
This must be like the Fan Toys and or Masterpiece. I think it's a Fan Toys Grimlock. Wow. Okay, so he's
That's
also
awesome.
got in here. Apparently, Carl is super, super crazy generous, and he sent us a.
I like mine better.
He sent along an Action Force troop carrier.
There's a bunch of stuff inside of it. Is that just a
That's stuff that's probably accessories for the troop
it says
carrier.
latch. Jody says, I think that's a Hasbro Masterpiece Grimlock.
Oh, well, it looks awesome. Oh my gosh. This must be for you.
Oh, it's a panda. I don't know if there's a meaning to it, but it's cute.
Well, I'm blown away. I don't know what to say at this point. Wow. Okay. Carl, thank you so much. I cannot imagine why
Yeah,
you would have
Carl,
wanted
that
to
is-
part with this. This is a very rare and desirable variant of the APC from G.I. Joe that I have always wanted. And it looks almost complete. I mean, it's barely missing anything, if anything. I'll go back through the parts and look, but it looks like it's only missing the seatbelt piece, if that. This is incredible. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say, but thank you. Thanks a million, man. I'm really shocked.
Me too. I didn't even know I was getting anything. I feel like I want to get little hats for Grimlock to wear, like to dress him up. Like he could have a little Easter bonnet for Easter, and then he could have like, a little Santa Claus hat, and he could have a Halloween witch hat. I just think that would be fun, and then he could be like my little thing that I dress up for seasons in my office. Baby APC goes inside. Is that true?
Yeah, well, it could.
Oh.
They're just saying it could.
Bruce, thanks for the super chat. He says, did you two have a Big Track programmable toy?
A big programmable toy?
Big Track.
I did not have a big track. No.
Did you? Was it cool?
Do you remember it?
Do you remember it? Fade to black. Michael is totally ignoring you, Melinda. Yeah, he does that. When Michael gets in his zone, it's not intended to be whatever, but he just is very hyper focused.
You know what? I don't mean to be, rude.
I said
I
that.
know that. I'm just telling them.
It's not to say I don't get mad at him for it. Like, we are still human. We still have fights. We are still locked in a house together for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Sometimes with technological issues that prevent our live stream starting on time.
Hey, that we got it solved, and that's what counts.
Burt Reynolds says, Big Track was awesome. Who gets to say that sentence? Not very many people. Let's see. Was that all of
That's
the
it.
opens?
That is all the donations. That concludes the live stream, I think.
Master Son 42 says, sorry I'm late. How's it going? Well, it's winding down. I think we may be close to wrapping
well,
it up.
guys, yeah. Thanks for joining us on the live stream. We're gonna be doing these every Saturday until life finds a new normal. So I'm working on some new videos right now. My next video is going to be a Black Lion repair, a vintage Matchbox Voltron Black Lion repair, disassembly, and wing and tail repair. And then after that, I'm going to be working on some bigger features for the end of the month. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Melinda's apparently going to go bake a cake.
It's a piece of cake to bake a pretty cake.
And we're going to be here. If you need to reach out to us, you can reach out to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter,
Before
Instagram.
you go, yell out in the comments what we should do next week for our topic for this
Oh, yeah.
live stream because, you know, we try to come up with cool things that have plenty of room for conversation. And, you know, you guys sometimes come up with really great things that you want to hear us talk about, or maybe things we've already talked about that might make a good live stream. So if you yell them out, we will be able to go back in these comments and kind of read through what you say and sort of figure out what we could put together for that. So
yeah.
we'll start asking that during the live streams coming up because we're going to be doing these every Saturday at 2 p.m. our time. So whatever time that is for you guys.
Yep.
So if you missed this week's, don't worry about it. We understand some people still have to work and do all kinds of stuff. It's Easter weekend. I know a lot of you guys were doing Easter egg stuff with your kids and, you know, all the different things people do. That's fine. But in the comments, if you're watching this after the fact or right now, I see a lot of you guys are yelling out some great topics that are, you know, on our list of things that we've got bandying about. So we really appreciate hearing from you, and we really appreciate you tuning in. And we hope you're staying safe and not going too crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Watch for that Black Lion video here real soon, like probably Monday. And if you'll see it earlier if you're on Patreon, of course. And we will talk to you later. I'm going to go turn off the stream now.
I'm going to look at my Grimlock and see how many hats I could come up with for him. I think I could, like, sew him a little Easter bonnet. What do you guys think?